Today we're going to talk about franchising your business. So if you're a successful business owner, you want to grow, you're considering franchising, we're going to go through all the steps involved, what franchising is all about, and the information you're going to need to make the right decision about franchising your business the right way. My name is Charles Internicola. I'm one of the partners at the Internicola law firm. We're a national franchise law firm, and we represent emerging franchisors throughout the country. So that means business owners like you who are about to franchise your business and existing franchisors that are growing across the country. So let's get into franchising and what it's all about. And we're going to start with the steps to franchising your business. Steps are preparing your franchise disclosure document, preparing your operations manual, registering and protecting your trademarks, establishing your new franchise company, registering your franchise offering, creating a franchise sales strategy, and setting a plan of action for the next 1, 2, 3, 5 years. And we're going to talk about all of these in detail today. So let's get into the basics, right? What is franchising? And it's simple. It's a legal and business model that's going to allow you to grow your business. As a franchisor, you're going to be granting a license that allows others to duplicate your business and expand your brand, right? So you're granting a license to other individuals that you're going to call your franchisees. And that license is going to allow them to duplicate your business, operate under your brand name, and hopefully grow your franchise system or help you achieve multi-unit growth. As a franchisor, you're going to grant a license to your franchisees, right? So now they have the ability to operate and duplicate your business. You're going to provide them with initial training. You're going to provide them with your operations manual. You're going to provide ongoing support, ongoing brand protection, ongoing improvements to your system. In turn, your franchisees are going to invest. They're going to invest their own time, money, managerial efforts. They're going to pay you ongoing royalty fees. They're going to pay you an upfront franchise fee. And they're going to be other fees that are going to help support the franchise system you're building. So if it's done correctly, franchising is really a win-win business relationship. For you as a franchisor, you're going to receive an initial franchise fee, ongoing royalty fees, the opportunity to expand your brand, access to capital, and managerial skill that your franchisees are going to provide. Your franchisees, in turn, are going to get the ability to tap into your existing business model, your brand, your training, your systems, your support. From an economic standpoint, as a franchisor, the 3 primary revenue streams that you're going to enjoy are the initial franchise fee that the franchisee is going to pay to you when you sign an agreement with them, ongoing royalty fees, which is typically a percentage of their ongoing weekly or monthly revenue, and a third stream, which is proprietary purchases, supplier rebates. So as your franchisees buy products and services or work with your vendors, there's going to be another revenue stream there for you. The advantages of franchising, well, let's compare it to organic growth. Organic growth has its value. It's very linear. You open up multiple locations. You're investing your own time and more money, right? You need more capital to open up more locations organically. You need to hire your own management team and your infrastructure. The advantage of franchising is it's more exponential and you enjoy more economies of scale. Let's compare the two side by side. Organic growth, which is a traditional growth model, right? You just open up more locations versus franchising. Well, from capital standpoint, organically, you're going to contribute, you supply the capital. Whereas with franchising, your franchisees are going to invest their own capital, their money, to open up their new locations. From a management standpoint, your management, organically, it's limited to your team. From a franchising perspective, your franchisees are going to bring their managerial skills, right? The franchisees that open their locations, hopefully going to manage and run their locations well. Risk, organic growth, well, all the risk is really on you. From a franchise perspective, it's shared across the franchise system with your franchisees. And then growth. Organically, your growth may be limited to your resources. And with franchising, well, you can achieve rapid growth and accelerate the expansion of your business. So those are some of the advantages of franchising over organic growth. They don't come free or without disadvantages, right? As a franchisor, you're going to have to incur legal fees for developing your franchise offering, maintaining it. You're going to have to engage in franchise sales marketing. You're going to have to support your franchisees, right? So just because you sell a franchise doesn't mean you're done. Ongoing, you need to provide your franchisees with support, ongoing training, value for them to succeed. And that gets to overall, you're going to keep developing systems. So initially, when you sell franchises, you're going to provide that support to the franchisees. As your franchise system grows, you're going to build more training teams, more support teams, marketing, quality control. So again, you have obligations also. I'm going to dive into this because it may be a question that you have, but we're going to go into more detail. How long should it take you to franchise your business? It should take you 90 days, maybe 90 to 120 days. As an example, this slide is an example of how our team approaches franchise development. At the early stage, we start off with strategy sessions, preparing a competitive study, and really positioning your brand, right? What your franchise offering is going to mean, how you're competitively positioned against other franchisors out there, how to make your franchise offering attractive not only to prospective franchisees, but also to franchise brokers and other franchise sales channels. In that 90 days, we're going to be developing your FDD, protecting your trademarks, setting up your franchise company, getting your financial statements ready for your franchise disclosure document. We're going to have your operations manual prepared, and steps that are critical, having your brand positioned so when you do start offering and selling franchises, you can articulate your unique selling proposition and why your franchise can help transform the lives of your franchisees. So we'll talk about these things as we go along the way. What does winning look like in franchising? And I think this is something that's not discussed enough for business owners like you who are looking to franchise your business. Typically, lawyers or developers will focus on the now. Hey, we'll franchise your business, and then in 90 days, you're just going to start selling franchises. But it's not as simple as that. What you need to do right now is understand that franchising is a long-term win. And to win at it, you need to look at your goals over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. What's that 5-year goal? Right? 5 years from now, one of the goals is going to be to get to 50 units and above and position yourself for accelerated growth. But in year one, in that initial 90-day period, we're going to be focused on developing your franchise system and, most important, doing it the right way, right? Your FDD, your franchise offering needs to be best in class. You need to be legally protected. You need to avoid pitfalls and wasted dollars. And in that first year, my recommendation is to focus on organic franchise sales. That's individuals that could be qualified franchisees that know your brand and have expressed an interest. So that first year is to start getting everything right. In that first 90 days, we're going to franchise your business. You'll be able to legally sell franchises. But I don't want you to just start spending money right then and there. Let's focus on positioning your brand. Let's focus on organic contacts. And then let's focus on selling a couple of franchises in that first year. Now, just know this. Your first 10 franchisees are going to be critical to the success of your franchise system long term. Why? Because they're going to be the individuals who validate. If they do well, they're going to be telling other franchisees how well they're doing. If they don't do well, you're going to face resistance and difficulty in selling franchises. So that's year one. Year two, you're going to focus on selling some more, supporting your franchisees, making sure they're super profitable. So years 2 to 4, slow growth or sustainable growth, I should say, right? If we want to sell 10 franchises, make sure we could support all 10. Make sure they're successful. But we're going to build up to years 3, 4, and 5. If we can validate well, meaning your existing franchisees are doing really well, that's when you could really accelerate the growth of your franchise system. So winning, it's a strategy, and you have to look at it from year 1 through year 5. And it now's a great time to start focusing on that. Again, getting a little ahead over time, what you're going to see is your revenue streams. Year one, initially you're going to be negative because you've spent money to franchise your business. Over time, you're going to sell franchises, so you're going to receive that initial franchise fee revenue. Your royalty stream will be low because your franchisees may not be open yet. The long-term goal, when you get to year 5, you're going to want your royalty revenues going up sustainably, and your franchise fee revenues following may be a little lower. And we'll talk about that. Let's get into the specifics about franchising itself. And now you're going to hear about the franchise disclosure document so often, right? People call it the franchise disclosure document. They call it the FDD. And it's going to be one of the most critical documents for your whole franchise infrastructure. The FDD, it's a legal document that you as a franchisor are going to be required to disclose to a prospective franchisee before you could take any money from them or before you could sign an agreement with them. The FDD and franchise law, right? Before you could offer or sell a franchise, what's happened is at the federal level, the government, through the Federal Trade Commission, has said, we need to protect prospective franchisees. And before you could sell a franchise, you need to give a prospective franchisee the FDD. It's designed as a disclosure document. We want you to give this prospective franchisee information that they could use to make a decision about whether or not they want to invest in your franchise. And the government has said, before you sell a franchise or take any money from a franchisee, you need to give them a copy of your FDD 14 days earlier. So just keep in mind, and again, this is all things that a good franchise lawyer is going to be able to take care of for you, but I want you to know what's involved. Franchising is regulated at the federal level and at the state level. So at the federal level, the federal franchise laws say you need to give a prospective franchisee your FDD, and this applies in every state. However, certain states have also supplemented these laws. And some states, they're called the franchise registration states, have said, that FDD that the federal government wants you to disclose, we also want you to register it with us. And you can't sell in our state until we give you approval. So there's federal law, there's state laws, and these are things your attorney is going to be speaking to you about and working toward as you go franchise your business. So let's summarize a little about the FDD and really franchise law. 1, franchising is regulated at the federal and state level. 2, before you offer or sell a franchise, you need to disclose your FDD to your prospective franchisee. 3, you're going to need to update your FDD every year, and possibly earlier if there's a material change in the information you're disclosing. 4, your FDD must be registered in the franchise registration states. 5, there's a disclosure period. So before you sign an agreement or take any money, you need to disclose your FDD 14 days earlier. 6, your FDD not only tells the franchisee about your franchise offering, but also contains all of the legal agreements a franchisee is going to be required to sign. And 7, licensing is not an alternative to franchising. And we have great information about that. But if someone is telling you that it is, what I could tell you it's not. Franchising and licensing are almost one and the same. And when you sell a franchise, you're granting a license. So you can't avoid the franchise laws and the regulation by calling a relationship a license. Summarizing what the FDD is. The FDD summarizes the franchise opportunity that you're offering to your franchisees. It's a prospectus document that's required by federal and state law. It must be pre-disclosed to your franchisees. It must be registered in certain registration states. It's going to summarize your legal and business relationship with your franchisees and needs to include copies of all of your franchise agreements. The FDD itself, it contains 23 sections. Each section is called an item, and the federal and state laws create requirements as to the information you need to disclose within each item. Let's get into the FDD in some more detail. We have some examples of an FDD, and we just chose 5 guys as a sample just so you have a visual. Our clients don't prepare the FDD, we do. But right now, as you're learning about franchising your business, I want you to know about the information that's in the FDD, because they have business implications and legal. And these are all of the things we discuss with our clients as we're developing a franchise offering. So you'll see in this example, here's the FDD. There's a cover page. It has an image of your logo, in this case, Five Guys, and gives a summary of how much a prospective franchisee should be expected to invest in starting their own franchise business. That gets to the heart of everything the FDD is about. It's about giving franchisees information, what they're going to spend to start up the business, after they're operating the business, and the obligations they're going to have along the way. Why this is important for you now is because as we're developing your FDD, we really need to position what's going to make you competitive. We need to position how to protect you legally today, but also legally in the future. Because things you disclose in your FDD today will have impact on your franchise system 5 and 10 years from now. And so we need to get it right this time as you're first developing your franchise system. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each item. There's 23. Some of them are much more important than others. The purpose of this presentation today is not to go into too much detail, but I want to expose you. So item 1, that's about you, the franchisor, any predecessor companies you have. And now when I say you as the franchisor, we're going to talk about it. That's going to be a brand new company that you set up. It's going to be your new franchising company. And we're going to talk about when it was set up and what the company's all about. That's item 1. Item 2, it's about business experience. Item 2 is your personal bio, who you are as the founder of the business, what your experience is. And if you have other people on your management team that your franchisees are going to interact with, we need to include their 5 years of experience. Why does that matter? Because a prospective franchisee wants to know who they're dealing with. Item 3 is about litigation. If you have very serious litigation in your past that involves issues of securities fraud, or we may need to disclose that now. Bankruptcy, same thing. If you, anyone on your management team, have a bankruptcy in your past, we may have to disclose that. Why? The government believes that that may be relevant information. And if you are someone who has a bankruptcy in your past, just know that it's not an uncommon occurrence, right? Successful business owners, successful entrepreneurs, sometimes have issues where bankruptcy is an option. Item 5, this is where it gets important. As a franchisor, you're going to disclose to your franchisees what your initial fees are. What are the fees we charge to a franchisee before they open? Well, the most common fee is the initial franchise fee. That initial franchise fee is basically the entrance fee. If you sign a franchise agreement with your franchisee, they pay an initial franchise fee. Hypothetically, let's say it's $35,000. That is the fee for allowing the franchisee into your system and allow them to become a part of your network. Other initial fees may include fees we charge for initial inventory purchases or any initial item that a franchisee has to buy from you before they open up. But the biggest one is the initial franchise fee itself. Item 6. Well, in item 6, we have to describe other fees that we charge along the way. These are the fees that relate to our relationship long term. So we know the initial fee is that initial franchise fee. Long term, what's the financial relationship between you and your franchisees? Well, the most common fee is going to be your royalty fee. Royalty fee is the ongoing fee the franchisee pays to you to remain in your franchise system. It's typically collected weekly or monthly. The most common royalty fee structure is a percentage of gross sales. For example, in the Five Guys example, they charge 6% of the franchisee's weekly gross sales. However, depending on your business, that could vary. We have clients where the royalty fee is a percentage of gross sales, or it's just a fixed weekly or monthly amount, or it's a combination, right? It's the higher of a fixed percentage of sales or a fixed dollar amount. There's other ongoing fees. For example, as a franchisor, you may want to have a brand development fund, which is a collective pool of funds that you collect from all your franchisees for you to use on PR and certain types of marketing and development that benefits everyone equally. There's other fee obligations we're going to be disclosing, such as obligations a franchisee has on local advertising and ongoing training or supplemental training. What fees, a transfer fee if the franchisee sells the business. So there's fees along the way. That's what item 6 is about. Item 5 is, what are the fees they're paying to you before they open? Item 6 is, hey, over the course of our 10-year franchise agreement, what are the ongoing fees that are going to be paid? Item 7 is your estimated initial investment. So within item 7, we have to communicate to the franchisee what they should estimate as the total capital they're going to need to open up the business. So these expenses will include estimates for build-out cost, equipment, signage, initial inventory, paying legal fees, architect fees, everything that we would expect through our experience a franchisee will incur to open up the business. Within item 8, we discuss what restrictions we put on our franchisees. So if we're in a restaurant, there may be particular products or supplies that franchisee can only buy from us or from our vendors, our suppliers. We need to disclose that. If we're a service-based business, well, resources and other materials we use, if we designate them as source restricted, we need to communicate that in the FDD. And that's going to be important. When we're franchising a business, we're going to be talking about your supply chain and not only what it looks like today, but what it's going to look like 5 years from now. And what we need to communicate to your future franchisees about our restrictions we're going to place on where they could buy products and services. And there's a couple of reasons for this. The most important is to maintain quality control. The other is we generate economies of scale. And if we're using designated vendors, we're going to receive revenue in the form of rebates. Item 9 is going to be a legal disclosure of what the franchisee's obligations are to you as the franchisor. It's going to be operating the franchise business, maintaining your systems and quality standards, following the requirements in your operations manual, all of those things. Item 10 discusses whether or not we provide financing to our franchisees. 11 talks about the assistance we provide franchisees, advertising requirements, computer system requirements, and the initial training that the franchisee needs to participate in before they open. And in this slide that we're showing now, that's an example of an initial training schedule. And I think this example comes from the Five Guys FDD, which is a public document. So what you'll see here is they're telling prospective franchisees, these are the training subjects we're going to cover during training that you need to complete before you open the business. And as we franchise your business, we're going to talk about that. Does a franchisee have to come to one of your corporate locations for a week, for 2 weeks? What are the topics we're going to cover in our training? Do you provide supplemental training at their location when they open? All things we're going to discuss. Item 12 of the FDD tells the franchisee about the territory. So if it's a retail-based business, when a franchisee opens and locates their franchise, are we going to create a radius around that of protection where we agree not to sell other franchises or allow anyone else to open? Also, how do we deal with unique markets, whether it's a stadium or an amusement park or captive market accounts if we're a service-based business? All things we're going to discuss, which are territorial rights of your franchisees. Item 13 is about your trademarks. We need to tell franchisees, are our trademarks registered with the United States Patent and Trademark Office? Are they protected? Do you have notice that someone else is infringing on them? Why? Well, because when you sell a franchise, you're giving a franchisee the right to use your trademark. And so they're going to need to know the level of protection that your marks are being afforded. Item 14, similar to trademarks, we need to disclose whether or not we have patents and copyrights. Again, all things that your legal team should be leading you on, but these will be discussions. Within item 15, we need to tell the franchisee whether or not we require them to participate in the operation of the business, meaning, is your franchise offering an absentee owner offering, which it could be, or is it one where The individuals that are buying the franchise, you're going to expect that they go run and manage day-to-day operations, right? Those are important distinctions. Item 16, it talks about restrictions on what the franchisee can sell. Naturally, they can only sell what you tell them they could sell, right? Products and services that you approve and that are consistent with your business model. Item 17 provides a legal summary. How long is your franchise agreement for? Is it for 5 years or 10? What are your franchisees' renewal rights? Can they renew once or can they renew multiple times? What are situations where you as the franchisor are allowed to terminate their franchise? What restrictions do we put on franchisees about their ability to transfer their business, sell it? And also, how do we resolve disputes? Do we require arbitration? Do we require litigation? Again, this is just a legal summary. Item 18, if you're a celebrity or a celebrity endorses your business, then we need to disclose that. Item 19, so this is a big factor here. And this is a concept that a lot of entrepreneurs have a hard time understanding, because a smart business person, before you invest in a business, you're going to want to know what it earns or what it makes. In the franchising world, as a franchisor, you're not allowed to tell a franchisee how much they could potentially earn or make if they buy your business. Now, there's an exception here. Consider a franchisee would typically ask you, well, in your existing location, what are your gross sales like? What's your net profit? If you're a restaurant, it may be, what are your gross sales? What's your food cost? If you're a retail business, what are your gross sales? What's your rent factor? These are all normal questions. The answer is you cannot disclose any of that information unless you disclose it in item 19 of your FDD. It's called a financial performance representation. And the only financial information you could give a prospective franchisee is what you disclose in item 19. And we spend a significant amount of time with our clients on this. What you need to know is within item 19, we're going to include historical data about your existing company-owned locations. We're going to look at the most recent calendar year, and we need to go through the data. What was the gross sales of your locations? Are there other factors we could reliably report to your prospective franchisees, such as operating costs and gross profit, rent, factors that would help them make an informed decision? That would be disclosed in item 19. Now, the information we report doesn't need to be audited. It just needs to be information from your existing outlets, your existing locations, that you have backup data for. The backup data is not published, but the information is, and we need to get it right. If you have good numbers, I strongly recommend an item 19. And I recommend spending significant time with your franchise attorney in developing this, because it's a key factor in the franchise sales process. If you work with franchise brokers, they're going to be very interested in these numbers. Item 20 just gives a summary of your existing locations, any locations that have closed or recently opened, right? So within this section, we're going to give a summary of your locations. Item 21, we need to attach a copy of your financial statements. Now, the typical question would come up is, what financial statements am I referring to? Is it the financial statements of your existing business? And the answer is no. When we franchise your business, we're going to be setting up a brand new company. It'll be your franchising corp or your franchising LLC. It's brand new. It's going to have very limited to no activity. We're going to set up your company. You're going to open up a bank account. Depending on the states we're selling in, we may need to get an audited opening balance sheet. The data in that financial statement, that balance sheet, is going to be very limited. It's going to show you set up a new company, you deposited some money, but those are the financial statements we need to include in your initial FDD. And that's item 21. Item 22, it's a big one. We need to attach a copy of all the agreements that your franchisee could be expected to enter into with you. The most important one is your franchise agreement. So the FDD discloses your franchise offering and summarizes what the legal relationship is. Your franchise agreement is your binding legal agreement with your franchisee, where you give them the right to open up the business, the franchise business, and they in turn agree to pay royalties and other fees along the way. And within that contract, we'll designate where they can operate and other restrictions. Item 23 is an important factor. It may not make complete sense right now. It's an FDD receipt. Under the federal and state law, again, we talked about you have to give your FDD to a franchisee not less than 14 days prior to them signing a franchise agreement or paying any money to you. Well, just giving them the FDD is not enough. You need them to sign a specific receipt with a date that confirms their date of receipt of the FDD. And of course, this is all done electronically now, but in item 23 of the FDD, what you need to know is there's a single sheet of paper, it says receipt, and that's what the franchisee is going to sign. What we did is just summarize the FDD itself, and to keep on track of what we're discussing overall is the steps to franchising your business. So that first step, or a critical step, is preparation of your franchise disclosure document itself. And the franchise disclosure document, as we discussed, combines legal with business. That is, it advises franchisees of the legal obligations that they could be expected when they enter into a relationship with you, but also discusses the business relationship, what the initial fees and economic terms are going to be when they sign up, what are the ongoing fees the franchisee is going to pay to you, what the franchisee should be expecting as to estimated startup costs. Now, within your franchise agreement, many times you're going to tell franchisees that they need to follow your system standards and procedures. Question becomes, how do they know your system standards and procedures? Well, we could tell that to them. Can we put all of them in a franchise agreement? We can't, because they're going to be extensive, from building out and starting up the business, to running the business, to approved suppliers, to ordering, to marketing, right? We can't put all those requirements in a franchise agreement. So where do they go? They go in the confidential operations manual. So during this franchising process, in addition to preparing your franchise disclosure document, which includes your legal agreements, you're also going to be preparing your operations manual. Now, this operations manual is not made available to the public because it's confidential. It's going to include everything about the business, from who you are, to the philosophy behind the business, to how a franchisee builds out the business, runs and operates it. That's the operations manual, and that needs to be done during this 90 to 120 day period is its preparation. And I alluded to some of them, right? Your operations manual, it's the how-to guide for your franchisees. It's going to include things like your initial training schedule, pre-opening requirements, operational requirements, approved suppliers, systems and processes, marketing requirements, social media policies. It's confidential, and it's given to your franchisees after they sign a franchise agreement. What's important to know is that things are going to change over time, right? What you do today may be different 2 years from now or even 12 months. Your operations manual is intended to be upgraded and updated periodically over time. As your system evolves, as you change suppliers, you're going to also be updating your operations manual. I mention that because, sure, you need it when you start franchising, and we need it in that 90 to 120 day window, but just know it's going to evolve. It's never going to be perfect, and something you're always going to be improving on. People ask what topics or what information would be included in it, and we've reviewed a couple of them. Some things that I like to focus on also is in your operations manual, just consider your franchisee just invested money and not only made an investment, but made a decision of trust with you and backing your brand. So things you're going to want to discuss and you're going to discuss in training is your story, your mission, what your brand is about, what you mean to your customers, and the philosophy of your organization, right? Because you want your franchisees to adopt it. You're going to tell franchisees about you as a founder and your management team. You're going to tell them about who your customers are and how, together you're going to deliver value. You're going to go through the services and products you offer. You're going to go through approved marketing strategies. You're going to go through your customer relationship management systems, your point of sale systems, build out requirements, approved suppliers, and anything that's going to help them. Marketing templates, marketing forms. Now, traditionally, operations manuals were printed. Today, they've become digital, and they're more than just a little book. They're something that should be evolving. For example, if a particular how-to topic comes up often, along the way as a franchisor, you may produce videos and have video modules and training modules, anything that's going to help you leverage time and improve the operations of your franchisees. So those are important elements. We know we're preparing your franchise disclosure document. We're preparing your operations manual. At the same time, right, in this 90 to 120 day window, we're evaluating your trademarks. Now remember, one of the biggest assets you're giving a franchisee is a license to use your trademarks, to use your name. So we need to make sure it's legally protected. And to protect a trademark in the United States, it needs to be registered at the federal level with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. So during your franchising process, we're going to be evaluating your marks. If you have registrations, we're going to evaluate those. If you don't, we're going to file registrations right away. If we conduct an evaluation and we identify a conflict, we're going to have a heart-to-heart conversation about potentially modifying your trademarks. It's a very sensitive subject with many founders and entrepreneurs, but we need to make sure if we're going to sell a franchise, we could protect the brand. Otherwise, there's going to be legal exposure and liability. So now during the franchising process, we're going to be reviewing these trademarks and protecting them. Just keep in mind, for your trademarks, we have to disclose in item 13, what's their status? Are they registered? Are they not registered? Is an application pending? Do you have any notice of any other company that's infringing or using the same name? We need to conduct trademark searches early on in the franchising process. Ultimately, we need to make sure they're registered with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. They may not be registered when we start selling franchises, but at least we need to make sure the trademark applications are in and they look favorable. Over time, as a franchisor, you're going to need to police and protect your mark, right? You don't want a franchisee in Nebraska, Texas, California, and then locally someone opens up and uses a name that's very similar. And if they do, we need to have the ability to send them a cease and desist notice and to stop them. And the way we do that is through federal registration. So FDD is being developed, operations manuals being developed. We're working on the trademarks. We're protecting them. We need to set up a new franchise company, right? The company that owns your existing business is not going to be the franchisor. Why? Well, we don't want to expose that company to franchise liability. Plus, we want a clean, fresh, new company that's going to have a very simple financial statement to prepare when it launches. So we're going to set up your new franchising company. And during this time, we're going to speak to your internal team. We're going to speak to your accountant. We're going to decide if it should be a limited liability company, a C Corp, an S Corp, and the state of formation. So during this 90 to 120 day period, we're going to be setting up this new corporate entity. Most important, we're going to be coordinating it with your accountants or accounting team. Why do we want to set up your new company? Well, we want to protect from liability, right? As a franchisor, you're going to be selling franchises. So we want to isolate that activity in a brand new company. We're also going to then give that new company the legal ability to use your brand and sell franchises. And the way we do that is, you remember earlier we said we're going to protect your trademarks. We're going to obtain USPTO trademark registration. Well, we're going to give a license to that new franchise company, and that license is going to allow that new company to use your trademarks and to grant licenses to franchisees. So as we go through the process, we prepared your franchise disclosure document. Your operations manual is complete or about to be complete. Your trademark applications are pending, and we feel good that it's going to be protected. We set up a brand new franchise company for you. What happens next? Well, under the federal laws, once we issue your FDD, and I use the word issue, all that really means is together as a team, we believe the information is complete, and as your franchise lawyers, we say it's ready to go and it's in compliance. We issue your FDD. At that point, you're legally a franchisor, and you're able to start offering and selling franchises. And that's in the vast majority of the states. However, there are 13 franchise registration states. These states have said, you know what, even though you complied with the federal law As a franchisor, we want to provide additional scrutiny. We want to protect our local franchisees. And before you use that FDD, we want you to file it with us and register it with us, and we're going to review it. And after we review it, we'll grant you registration or deny it. And if we're working together, it's going to be granted. And only after you register with us will we allow you to sell franchises in our state. So this step is about registering your FDD in the franchise registration states. And you may not register it in all of them. We're going to focus on where you want to sell. These states include California, Washington, North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Virginia, New York, Maryland, right? So in this slide, we're identifying these franchise registration states. These are the states that we can't sell a franchise in until we register our FDD. Do you see all that white space outside of it? Those states don't require franchise registration. We could start selling right away in those states. Now, when I say right away, it may mean immediately for some states, or it may mean within a week for others. Certain states, they're not registration, but we have to file a notice with the state, which happens very quickly and gets approved very quickly. So we have franchise registration states and we have franchise filing states. What you need to know, when we issue the FDD, we're good to sell in the vast majority of the country, except we need to, in the franchise registration states, first obtain registration. What comes next, or what should we be doing during this 90 to 120 day period, and even beyond? It's a step that I think so many startup franchisors ignore or developers don't tell them about, which is, let's develop a franchise sales strategy. Too many people jump into franchise sales without doing the hard work, rolling up their sleeves and determining what's the unique value proposition of what they're offering, how their franchise offering is going to help transform the lives of their franchisees. And you may see this in a ton of marketing. If you look at franchisor marketing, you may notice a problem, which is it all sounds the same. You know, be in business for yourself, not by yourself, or they may say, we provide training and we provide support, but those are all generic things. You need to take a step back and really evaluate what is the transformation your franchisees are going to experience when they sign on with you, when they become part of your team. What is the unique selling proposition of your franchise offering? What makes you different from all the other franchisors? That's a serious question, and you really need to develop it. And we discuss this with our clients from day one. And in fact, part of it's embedded in your franchise disclosure document. So if we have certain core values or a unique value proposition, we need to make sure it's reflected in the legal and business infrastructure disclosed in your FDD. For example, do you have an exclusive supply chain? Do you have certain exclusive technology? Do we have a very favorable royalty structure that rewards franchisees for more sales? Are we more competitive with franchise fees? Do we give better territories or territory protection? Does our item 19, our financial performance representation, tell a very compelling story about profitability or growth? But these are all things that we need to be discussing and evaluating in terms of a franchise sales strategy. Also, what I find for startup franchisors is they sometimes are too trusting. I can tell you, if you have $1 million to spend on marketing and you spend it in year one, you're going to be wasting your money. And why do I say that? I say it because you need to season your brand. You need to learn what you don't know, and you need to get your brand out there, your franchise offering out there, and see how the market reacts to it, and then adapt along the way. Year one, I recommend as a sales strategy, as we're developing your FDD and your operations manual, your management team, and something we'll talk about, focus on your brand, your uniques, your unique selling proposition, your franchisee transformation. Even during this stage, we typically recommend, and you'll see in some of our webinars, some great vendors who are experts in franchise sales. I'm not saying engage them for a big project, but let's do a deep dive into what our brand means and how are we competitively positioned against our competition. Develop those points and have them reflected in a franchise sales landing page. Then in that first year, let's build out some mild PR, some third-party storytelling that helps season your brand. Let's focus on your organic contacts. Let's not just jump into spending money on pay-per-click ads where we're not going to find cost effectiveness. Let's not jump into paying for mass PR when we don't have the right follow-up systems. So let's slowly ease into it. Let's create a sales strategy that works. And that's for year one. Remember, we launch your franchise in the first 90 to 120 days. Then we're going to have registration applications pending. Let's slowly build our reach out. Let's qualify existing contacts, and let's slowly expand. And that expansion is also going to involve a sales strategy that starts introducing your brand to broker organizations, right? Again, you're not going to get results overnight. We need to season the brand. Year two is when we're going to start turning that notch and spending some more money. But let's get the sales strategy down, because I see too many brands come to us 2-3 years later and they just spent the money, but the plan wasn't there and it was wasted. Which gets into the next step, which is setting a realistic plan and budget. And I've discussed this a little. Let's look at the next 1 to 5 years. What's our plan in year one, right? We're going to launch that franchise in 90 to 120 days. We're going to focus on our organic contacts. We're going to make sure our brand positioning is right. We're going to make sure our franchise sales page is right. We're going to look to create some third-party validation. We're going to start to get involved with broker organizations. Also, as a founder, we're going to really keep learning franchising. And I'm proud to say our firm, we have a continuous learn franchising platform of webinars, online masterminds, and in-person mastermind events. And if you'd like to find out about them, just let us know. But our clients are always invited to it. So we need a realistic budget. Again, just spending money in year one doesn't produce results. So we need to be strategic. And I'm bringing this up now. So franchising just doesn't mean we're a franchisor and we spend money. Part of the franchising process in this step also means let's plan out the next 5 years. If you are considering franchising your business, we have a great team. We have our franchise launch program, which is fixed fee franchise development, and we go through the entire process. Our unique value is our franchise development involves legal representation with franchise development know-how. So we're doing this for over 20 years. Our team has taken over a franchise company and we've resold it. So what we're going to do is we combine legal with franchise development, creates a very good proposition, very good value for you. Most important is our community and our resources. See if we're not working together, go to our website, go to Learn Franchising. We have industry-leading webinars. They're all designed to expose you to what comes next. And that's really important for us. And we have a great community. I'd love for you to be a part of it. Learn more about our franchise launch program. More importantly, take a look at our Learn Franchising resources. There's free webinars, there's free guides. Most important guide is our ultimate guide to franchising. We have some great checklists, so definitely check it out. If you have any questions, I appreciate you spending the time with us today. Reach out to our team and we'd be glad to discuss how franchising could potentially work for you. Is it right for you? Should you franchise? And what's the right strategy, most importantly, to win at franchising? Thank you.